Hello and welcome. Campbell here from Autodidactic, back for another talk with Paula. Geez, I think this is what, number 5 or 6. People are really liking the videos, liking your research. Yes. So we're just going to jump straight into it. Today we're going to look at trams.
Okay, so Campbell. Now, did we even know that in 1770 on old Captain Cookie's boat, we had some device of electricity?
Electricity, 1770
yeah.
On Captain Cook, on the Endeavour.
Yes, we had Joseph Banks apparently in his room, who was using Leyden jars. Have you ever heard of that?
Leyden jars, yes. They're like an ancient battery, basically, or an old type of battery.
Yeah. So apparently, it was created a weak electricity current across a solid canvas floor to these batteries in a jar, and that gave him light.
Across the salt water soaked canvas floor.
A salt water soaked canvas floor is a description in that article.
Yeah, right. And that gave him light.
Yes.
Yeah, right. How interesting.
Yes, I thought that was really interesting. I've never seen that before.
Yeah. Leyden jars. I'm pretty sure they're like the Baghdad batteries that they found that they were clay, and Leyden were just glass jars. Yeah, with I guess a cathode and some salt water and probably a bit of copper in there. Yeah. Well, that's weird. The soaked floor.
Yes,
I mean, wouldn't it? So that's
Well, it actually describes of batteries to create a weak electrical current across a soaked seawater canvas floor to his cabin.
That's crazy. Yeah. Interesting.
So
I mean, yeah.
I found that very interesting.
Yeah.
So then
Anyway, I was just going to say, the series of their anchors dragging behind anchors in the ocean is a way to create electricity. I wonder if it's actually if that's got something to do with that. Yeah.
Like a turbine, you think? Like it's an accelerator of water.
Well, it's they use the salt as like the saline solution, and the anchor is the iron, so that's like a cathode, and it creates a differential which creates electricity. So, I mean, but I'm not even sure if when we say ships, what are we talking about? Are they ocean ships or are they airships? Because it makes more sense for all these people to come into these world's fairs and things on airships, doesn't it?
Airships, exactly. That's exactly right. That's how we got the bird's eye view.
The bird's eye view, that's right.
The bird's eye view. The Aboriginals called it an eagle, the eagle in the sky. So we then go to, we've got a little bold picture there, which explains the worry of Victorian government in the 1860s. They made a ruling about supply of electricity being very costly and very dangerous. So to keep everyone safe, once more, they passed an act, and it was called the 1896 Act, because by then, 1860s, we were already using electricity for businesses at night. We were using electricity art globes for the Prince Edward, I think, the first Princess Bridge opening. We had 3 street lights that were being used, and that was in 1867. But yeah, they brought in an act in 1896, which was called the Electric Light and Power Act. And it says, interestingly enough, while anyone can generate electricity for their own needs, no one was allowed to supply electricity to anybody else without permission.
Yes, and the monopoly starts, right? I'm sure that they also passed a bill later on saying that they could supply everyone with electricity, or the
Yes,
corporation.
because it's safe. Yeah, exactly. So, so we had businesses using electricity in 1863 at night only. We had the 1867 intro Melbourne celebrations of the Princess Bridge and Prince, I think, Edward that came over. In 1877, Apollo Streamline Candle Company first used electricity for all-night work, and I think they also supplied the 1888 exhibition buildings with their 93 kilometres of cabling of lighting, which I found an interesting article about. And the first night football match, Campbell, was held in 1879 at the MCG, fully lit up.
Interesting. What was that, 1879?
Yep. The first
Wow.
night footy match.
That was wow, okay. And do they say that it's electricity? Hang on, I'm just getting the picture up.
Yeah, they say that. Well, they use arc lamps
Electricity.
again.
Yeah, right.
Yep, there it is.
67.
Yep.
Seem like that. Under electric lights at the MCG. That is crazy.
Yep. And that was actually done by the Union of Victoria, which is the electrician union now, but they were around at that time. And that was on their website of their history of their union.
Wow. Jeez, that'd be a good picture to have, wouldn't it? Wow. Okay, I mean,
Wouldn't it be amazing?
Okay, so that's pretty early, right? So it's looking like they have like that they've found the old grid, right? Maybe they're just turning it back on or something.
Maybe they are.
I mean, when 1879, when was the light bulb?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me that. I knew it'd be somewhere in my little writings here, but it's, I think, well, you know what? Fulton, was it, hang on, we'll go into this then. Now, I found a little article called Water and Power, because this will put in perspective. Water and Power, A Romance of the Machine Age. This was in Trove in 1934. Put this in perspective. On January 29th, 1834, Michael Faraday,
Faraday,
who put in the electrical matter with magnetism, read a famous paper to the London Royal Society on the influence and introduction of electric current. The same year, almost the same, not far from that time he was talking to them in London, Batman entered Port Phillip Bay on a 15-ton schooner called Rebecca. So when you put the two of them in perspective, one's already talking about electricity and one's only just coming into Melbourne.
Well, I just had a bit of a look, and Edison first revealed his incandescent light bulb. Guess what year?
1880 something?
1879. So it says that there were, bulbs around before that, but basically his was the first working manufactured bulb, that they would use, right? I mean, there were some earlier ones maybe, but so that's interesting.
Yes.
I mean, a lot happening, right? And obviously Edison was in the US.
Yes. And isn't it funny? Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's a long way to come, right? They've got to manufacture them all. They've got to have all the infrastructure, how they work, how you get the electricity to them, the electric plants, everything.
Correct.
Before you set anything up, and yeah, it's all very quick.
It's all very quick, isn't it? And it seems to be in line with America all the time. Even when you look at steam engines, the moment America release its steam engines, we've all of a sudden got steam engines a few months later, and then we're building them. The tram, the electric tram, the cable tram, steam tram, as soon as they're released, we've got them as well, not long after. So it's almost like we had to wait for the announcement in the US before we can announce what's happening here. So if we go back to Batman and Faraday, so little did they both know, by 1934, this is still the article in Trove, Melbourne by 1934 uses 800,000 horsepower hours of electricity each year. I think it's even more, actually. I'm really bad with this, but it's 800 / then 3 zeros / 3 zeros.
800 3 zeros 3 zeros. That's 800 million.
800, yeah. So I knew I'd stuck it.
That's a lot.
Always. That is a lot.
Power thing too. Electricity is weird, but it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, horsepower hours of electricity every year. A city bathing light against the evening sky, a city of over 1 million people in 1934.
Wow.
The city was purged with wires above and below. Trains touched them, trams touched them, people throughout the city touched them, glass bulbs touched them. The world communicates to distant cities of electricity, the Faraday's electricity and a century progress, and all run by hydroelectricity.
They had a hydro plant back then. Wow.
They certainly did. They had a few, apparently.
They say that people touch the wires. Like, what does that mean? Like, what kind of electricity are we talking here? Because that was the whole AC/DC thing, right? The whole Edison versus Tesla is direct current versus alternating current. And direct current, if you touch it, it fries you, right? Alternating current, not necessarily. So that's interesting.
Again, alternating timelines. So are we talking about the original electricity here from Trove in 1934? Because they're saying that everything, like I read you about that one with the bulb where Victoria had to put an act in 1896 regarding the dangers, because they're talking about a system, this arc lamp system, which is a current, these small batteries and a lot of chemicals inside the globe.
Yeah.
They're not talking about this. So why are we talking in 1934 about a city where trains touch the electric wires, trams touch the electric wires, it propels people through the city, glass bulbs can touch them. That's how it says in the article. The world communicates to distance through circuits of electricity, Faraday's electricity, a century progress, and all run by hydroelectricity. That's what the Trove one said.
What's the oldest hydroelectricity in Victoria, do you know?
I haven't even looked into hydro, but it makes me go back to that Yan Ying Reserve.
Yeah, that's right.
Underwater.
Yeah.
And then before that, they mentioned a huge tank full of water that was pumped up through steam. So this is what, when you're researching, Campbell, as you know, you start looking at different articles or start looking in different avenues, and everyone tells you different stories. It's all different explanations for the same thing.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah. Victoria's first hydroelectric, 1908, Cassilis Gold Mining Company built it. And I'll just see if I can get a thing, like it's a full-on old world building. I'll see if I can find it.
It's going to be another part to this, I can just tell, Campbell.
Yeah, man, it'll be part 15 soon.
Oh, my golly gosh, you don't even know half the stuff I've been researching. It's just mind-blowing. But this whole electric fan could be a part 2 now. Because the electricity part's fascinating.
That's the first hydroelectric plant in Victoria. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I mean, just...
Whereabouts?
I'll have to have a look, but I mean, it looks very old world, right? It's just the same as everything we've seen, the arches and the blocks, and it, you know, probably found, I would think, and it is in Victoria, built by a gold mine. Of course. It doesn't really say where. Then it says the Rubicon hydroelectric scheme, 1922 was the first state-owned hydro scheme on mainland Australia. 400 kilowatts. So it says that first one was just for mining. So that wasn't even for... So 1922, it's saying, is another one. But yeah, I mean, you know, when you look at what they show us, right, you look at, you know, the actual structures, it doesn't look like the building that they should be doing the colony on. It's very old world. And of course, there's never any explanation. It's just, oh, we built this. And,
exactly.
You know, I think they just turned it back on.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because that goes back to what I quickly discussed in the last show, was that all those chimneys everywhere in Melbourne in the early 1850s, 1860s, with steam coming from the top.
Yep.
So we were using it back then. And there's even more proof.
And there's a lot of photos too of some very big machinery, right? Very big cogs and parts. And then, you know, and this is the thing, right? The machinery in the old world was this big. It was huge. It was huge, right? It was huge, and it was all made so well, and copper and proper metals, and then, you know, they run society on it, and then they just start dismantling it and taking it away and throwing it away as fast as they can, right? Like the steam engines. They used to run them off bridges and things for entertainment.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, but if you see the thickness of what they were having to weld and use, it blows your mind. Even the steam.
How were they welding back then?
Exactly.
We get the whole rivet story, and even that's a bit weird because the rivets have to be red hot when you use them.
Yes, you know, so the rivet story.
People with little buckets, you know, full of rivets and coals, but you know, I thought, no, this is how they built the Empire State Building. All this, they say, it's all very, you know, it's a nice story, I guess, but it doesn't make much sense.
No, exactly. It doesn't make, because I've got a steam engine exhibition just up the road, and it's there all the time in Yarragon, and it's like you look at it and you think it is so beautifully made, and where you don't even see weld, you don't see anything except the rivets. But the thickness of the iron that they were using was just cast. It was amazing. It is amazing.
Shaping it, I know, right? It doesn't make any sense at all.
And some were very decorative too. They were beautifully decorated.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to our electricity. So in Melbourne, 1867, we had 3 arc lamps. We had one outside the post office in Elizabeth Street, outside the telegraph office, and another at Parliament House. So these were these chemical battery-run arc lamps at that time. Derived from hundreds of expensive chemical batteries installed in a closed-in lamp to celebrate the Prince of Wales's marriage. That's right. So you've got all these little expensive chemicals in a bulb.
Yeah.
Now, logic tells me in 1863 they were supposed to be using the same sort of bulb to keep 1 or 2 businesses open in the evening so they could work. Where's all this money coming from? I know we talk about the gold rush, but No, we're still away at this stage. This money's coming in, but where's all these little chemical batteries coming from?
Was the 58 expo lit up?
Do you remember? I can't remember.
Well, the 79
really
one,
look at that.
81 wasn't
Actually,
it?
no.
Was.
The one that I spoke about in 1866, was lit up with gas bottles, with flames going up through the piers, through all the grooves.
Like inside as well, wow.
Yeah. That's how they lit it. That's how they lit it up for that masquerade party and the fancy dress party for the press dress, was they lit it up with gas.
Oh, it's such a funny image, isn't it? These amazing buildings that are, you know, just perfectly made with all their intricate bits and all their facading and all the artwork, and the only way they can work out to light it is to light a flame. It's two completely different technologies, right? That's crazy.
Exactly. But where's all the gas coming from, though, Campbell?
Well, that's another good question.
They were using gas.
Yeah. Well,
we had a lot of plumbers and stuff in 1858. A lot. More so than what I can find builders or anyone else. So 1858, there was a lot of plumbing going on. So they were tapping into gas somewhere and gas piping, so they were then running them into these buildings to light them up.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Gas is an interesting thing, you know. You got to put a mine over the top of it. You've got to put it into pressurized containers, send it through pressurized tubes, regulate it. You know, it's a big process, isn't it? Just to
absolutely.
Back then, it would have to be piping going directly to the expo hall.
But also too, like they were talking about the pillars and the grooves in the pillars. So you had flames going up these grooves to light areas up. So they wouldn't just have an open flame. That would have had to be encapsulated in something, because it produced a beautiful ambience lighting. So it had to be capsulated.
Yeah.
So you've got the flames capsulated, well, you know, probably the way I'd be thinking back in that time period would be like the oil lamps. They were the flame was capsulated in the glass chimney. So did they have flutes, really narrow flutes going up these pillars? Because, you know, it's not a whole lot of description of how it actually worked, but they did say that there was gas flames in all the grooves of the pillars.
Wow. Yes.
And you know, and we've got Batman arriving in 1835.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, where were the pipes in the pillars to get the gas?
Of course he was, yes.
Right, like, oh, there's just so many questions. But anyway, let's continue.
So anyway, we'll go past the old the lights. So look, the narrative seems to push the electricity narrative in around about the 1894, 1890 timeline, where we had it much, much earlier. And what I've just shown proves that. I mean, even going back to the unions, they showed that it was here much earlier. And then, you know, you can understand that the exhibition buildings had 93 kilometres of cabling in 1888.
That's crazy.
Because they lit that sucker up. You know, 1 million square feet, they lit it up. We've seen, you know, pictures of it being lit up. So, and then that goes into a little story of electricity, goes into the story of the tram that they had in 1888.
Yes.
Where they put a demonstration track down to demonstrate electric trams. Now, this tram went around the Carlton Gardens and was very popular, apparently. Now, the tram came from the tram came from a Boston company who had, just invented this electric tram, and the Boston company wanted to exhibit that electric tram in an expo. And of course, Victoria, as usual, hey, Melbourne, the first for everything. Yeah, let's get this electric tram over. Let's just do a demonstration track while we're extending our square footage for this huge 1888 exhibition, and demonstrate the electric tram. So it was brought over from the US. It went to London, where apparently on the voyage it just was destroyed, partially destroyed. It sat in London, and then Victoria said, no, bring it over here. We can fix it up.
That's a strange story.
It is another strange story. So we ship it over to Victoria, and Victoria went and used their engineers to fix up the electric tram for the demonstration.
Yeah, right.
In 1888.
Because they would have the knowledge. I mean, and just the whole story of bringing a tram over on one of those little boats is questionable as well. Like, there's a lot of iron and stuff in a tram. It's pretty heavy stuff.
Yep.
That's bits in pieces, right? So, but yeah, like, where did the engineers learn about trams in Melbourne? This was like the first commercial tram, pretty much, was it? So there's
and I mean, cable tram was only introduced in 85.
Interesting.
So all of a sudden we've got to have electric trams.
So all these photos we see of the horses pulling trams? Have you come across any of those for Victoria? And what year are they?
They're late 70s.
1870s.
1870s that I've seen.
All right. Because that's another crazy story too, right? They build these whole tram tracks and the whole thing, build it, and they've got actually no way to run them. They're like, oh, we'll just hook them up to horses.
There's actually one in the US about that, where they actually had underground cabling to pull the carriages. Yes, oh, hang on. Yeah. No, they had electric first, cabling overhead.
Yeah.
Then they decided, no, we don't want that. We'll just use good old underground cabling. And it wasn't long after, well, that was between the horse and then they did I don't know, it was all skewy rough, like it was all backward. Why would you get rid of the electric? It was all there.
Yeah. It was all there. There's a village in the middle of the Amazon jungle that someone found. Might have been Michelle Gibson, I can't remember. And it was just, in the middle of the jungle, this old, little town, and it had a full working electric tram system. Like, they were everywhere. They were part of the old infrastructure.
Yeah. But you think about it, Campbell, like apparently from that exhibition in 88, a few of the other councils then decided they wanted that electric tram too. So they put their orders in. So other electric trams were put into suburbs, like I think it was Northcote, Fitzroy, and maybe even Brunswick at that stage. But you think they'd start there. Why would you go all the way to Doncaster, which is nearly 12 kilometres from Melbourne, in an area that just is an orchard area for fruit and vegetables and grain? Why would you put the first tram there?
Because that's where it was, Paula.
Just accept the fact, Paula.
It was found, yeah. I mean, and trams, why are they spending all this money in this new country on tram systems when, I mean, come on, everyone had a walk. And it wasn't that big. You could walk everywhere if you wanted to. Like the tram, it runs on tracks. It only takes you around a certain circuit. It's a strange sort of little. It just doesn't make sense, right? Why aren't they building proper infrastructure and warehouses and roads? What about roads, right?
Yes, exactly. So even like, I mean, I'll jump the gun, but this tram, where it was put, Campbell, was you had to catch the train to Box Hill, because the train stopped at Box Hill at that time. Then from Box Hill, you catched the tram out to a very high point in Doncaster. Now, that tram took just under 6 months. The tram line took under 6 months to build. So they had the tram ready, apparently. They had the track ready, and by in October, I think 14th, 1889, the track was in use.
Yeah.
The track wasn't a flat track either. It was on like Doncaster area, which was the whole of Bundoora area. It was a huge area before they broke the shires down. But that area where they picked for that tram to go was on one of the steepest hills in the outskirts of Melbourne. Now, if you go back a little bit, yeah, but that's what that area, that's looking from apparently the tower, which I'll go into, over that area. It was the highest tower in that suburb, the highest hill. So these are a few explanations of the trams.
Homemade tower tourist attraction was the building of a lookout tower in 1877 on a hill beside Doncaster Road.
Yeah, I'll get into that one. It makes the whole story so weird. So we've got this tram, so they picked out that area. Now, there was two reasons why they picked out the Doncaster area. That's a little excerpt, Campbell, of the exhibition buildings and the electricity that was used.
Okay.
Those
3,006 candle power lamps and 4,400 candle power sunbeam lamps. 1889 was lit up. 1888.
So that candle light was actually the name of the company. They were called the Steam Candle Light Electricity Company at that time.
The steam candle light. That's interesting. It was all steam.
So they did, yeah. And that's actually what that system looked like that they brought from the exhibition. That's the carriage and that's the working engine.
This is right. So that's producing electricity, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Basically like through a dynamo, I guess. I mean, that's a pretty basic tram, right? It's a platform with a with a roof seat on the top.
Yeah, pretty basic. So I can see that would be brought from overseas, it was probably in parts. They chose this area, one of the steepest hills. There was a really, really steep hill, so steep that horses really struggled to pull anything up the hill. And there was a few of those, but the steepest one was the one up to the destination of this electrical tram. So they didn't choose an easy area to dig out for the tracks and for an overhead cable. So that just tells me, again, it's another narrative. And it took under 6 months to do. They also had a little, they had the little engine room a kilometre in from the track because it's 3.5 kilometres in length. So they had their little engine room, and that engine room produced the pulley, had a pulley system, and produced the overhead, because it had the overhead copper wire.
Yeah.
That produced electricity to pull that little engine, that little car, sorry. Now I'm going to get a bit.
I always wonder how the horses going downhill when they're pulling a tram. Wouldn't really work for him. Need a good break.
It would be pretty frightening, wouldn't it? So the engine house that they made was the actual overhead wire system was done by Thompson and Houston System. That was the name of the company. who did the overhead copper wiring for this electric tram. Includes an engine house at the 1 kilometre mark, where electricity was generated and transmitted by the means of running a cord and a pulley attached to the motor, which is in place underneath the car.
Okay, like underground or
on the track, underneath the actual tram cart, the car.
Okay, so it's hooked onto like a cable that drags it around, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll read that again. Which electricity was generated and transmitted by the means of running a cord that's above the car and a pulley attached to the motor, which is placed under the car.
Okay. Yeah, right.
So I've got pictures there, colourful pictures that our wonderful Victorian Historical Society has put up of the actual design of that car.
There is the history. That's the cart there, I'm guessing, and here's our little design. So we've got the cable above, which I'm guessing is the power source.
Yep.
And then let's see what the next one shows us. Cable above. So underneath, I mean, yeah, is it tapped in to an underground? Okay, what's that? Is this the cable here?
Yeah, the little pulling machine is there.
Okay. All right, so yeah, okay. So it looks like it's getting electricity from the top here to power the motor, and the motor, and it's sort of attached or running along a cable that's in the ground, and that's how it's pulling itself forward.
And apparently the grade of the track had to be pretty thick too, so it could get up the hill, because apparently it only did 5 miles an hour to get up the steepest part of the hill. So it's pretty slow.
Yeah, well, that's the next thing that makes it even more obsolete, right? If it's going at like walking pace,
What's the point?
What's the point?
What is the point?
Yeah.
So on a flat surface we can do 12 miles an hour. So the whole idea, apparently, there's quite a few companies involved in doing this. And the whole point was that they weren't selling land. There's always an agenda. They weren't selling land in that Doncaster area. They released X amount of blocks and they weren't really selling. So they thought, well, we'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. We will promote the area so we can sell the land. So we've got the developers involved. We've got the American Electric Company involved, Australian Electric Company involved. Got quite a few companies involved in this tram, and they then think, well, then we can then get people. We can charge them to be on this tram. We can get them to look at the beautiful area so we can sell land, and then we'll give them a little tourist destination at the end. And people were apparently very excited about this, really excited about it.
Wow.
So
they must have been
you've
bored.
got them going.
Happening.
Hey?
I thought Melbourne was jumping back then. They must have been pretty bored if they just wanted to sit on a 12-mile-an-hour tram and go around in circles.
So are we being given the poverty pack here, do you think, maybe, Campbell?
The poverty pack?
Do you think, the existing poverty pack of a tram system that really no one really wanted, but hey, let's just inject a bit of money into it and make it look like it's all new and sparkly?
Yeah, well, I'd say that's exactly what's happened. I mean, it's the same story everywhere, right? Every city, but yeah, these things were already there. It was just that was obviously just one of the best condition ones that they could uncover easily and get running. And maybe they couldn't find the tram cars, so they had to import them, and they just whack it on the tracks and off you go.
Can you have a look? Can you find the engine house for me? Sorry, guys, I'm very cold. It's Melbourne and it's freaking freezing. I've got the heater on and I've got a blanket and I've got jumpers and socks and I'm still cold. And I'm not whinging. I love the cold, but when you're just sitting here doing nothing, it's hard to get warm.
I know, man. I think it's cold here, but I'm about 20 degrees hotter than where you are. So,
oh yeah,
yeah, man. It's going to be that cold. You should be able to ski. That's what I reckon.
Oh, absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me if something's happening up in the mountains because it's just so cold all of a sudden. So yeah, have a look at the great bang wow engine room for this, amazing, only one in the Southern Hemisphere electric tram.
Yeah, here we have it.
So, we've got a bit of track sitting there.
Yeah.
I think in the distance, is there not something, a car there as well somewhere apparently? Yeah, I can see something over there.
So it doesn't even, yeah. I mean, if that's supposed to be what it's on, it looks like that you can, I mean, it's not the best photo, but you can't see any tracks, and it's definitely, it just looks like it's still mud, right? Like they're just uncovering it. It's
exactly. And look at the building itself. I mean, this is supposed to be, a photo. We're like, again, we're not talking, early 19th century. We're talking when we've got photos, and we've got some bloody awesome photography if we want it. But, if we want to blur things out and make things look shitty, we can do that too, so we can't see what's really going on.
Yeah, it's a very vanilla sky, isn't it? And yeah, that's, I mean, it's a good point, right? Like we do have some really good photos from this sort of age. Oh, that's not one.
That's just a sketch again, another sketch of how the tram ran along that area.
Yeah. So that's tram cable, and it doesn't really show how it's pulling itself along, but somehow.
And that's the line there.
Fox Hill Station. All right, and you can even buy land there. £5, man. £5. £5 later. All right. Put me down. I'm into it.
Oh, absolutely. So for something that is so, like history making, you've got a shitty looking engine room there in a shitty looking area. It just, again, it makes no sense. I mean, if you're going to be proud of something and you've got all these tourists coming through who have to go past that, mind you, why is it? Yeah, you would make it like spectacular to me anyway.
And why is there a big fence up the side, right? That's half the vision.
Well,
and that fence, by the way,
another story.
Looks like it's made out of sticks, right?
Yep. Because guess what also, Campbell?
What also?
There's always these stories everywhere. So we just can't have a track running from 3.5 kilometres from one destination to another without dramas. So you had people that supported this, and mainly corporations and people that thought they were going to make a lot of money out of all this. But you've also got land people, private land that this tram actually ran through. They had to get permission from people to run this tram through their private properties.
What? Okay.
Yes. So there's, as you can understand, there'd be people that weren't really happy about this, and there were people that were happy about this. So from the time this tram started, for quite some time, we had sabotage going on. So we had people and opposition companies as well. We had whoever they were, because it just goes from one story to another. People digging trenches and removing some of the track. putting fences across the track so the tram couldn't go through, stopping these companies from making money. It almost went derelict because they ran, it wasn't profitable anymore to run this tram. Then you had an agreement that the fences would be removed, and then you had people digging into the trenches and fixing up the tram again so the tram could continue on its way. And you had all this upheaval in one time, and then all of a sudden the tram was fine again to be running through these private properties and companies making a bit of profit.
Which is just, again, how does that make sense? I mean, they're trying to sell the land, so most of it's, government owned, stolen. So why would they go through, if they're building it, why would they go through private property? That's ridiculous. Apart from the fact that everyone with the property would be saying, well, where's my share of the profits? And that would make it completely unfeasible. They found it, man.
Yeah, yes. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, because, that's just skimping over the electric tram, right? So, and apparently Bendigo, get this, Bendigo had a battery-run electric tram in 1890 that was 63 cell batteries.
What?
Yes. Find that in Trove too. I'll read that again.
Electric tram, like a battery electric tram, like an electric car, basically.
Yeah, Bendigo had a battery-run electric tram in 1890, which held 56 cell batteries.
50. That's crazy.
So that's the tram going through
up the hill.
The Doncaster tram, yes. Up one of the hills.
Is that it looks like a photo that's been drawn on, doesn't it?
It does. When you zoom in on some of these photos, they definitely look drawn.
Yeah. And this is the tower.
Now we go to, I'll just give you a little bit of a background. That was a quick run through of the electric tram. It had a lot of problems. What I'm going to send you is a Melbourne guy who's done a little bit more research on the electric tram, more mainstream research, which I will send to you so you can link it in at the end of this video, because it goes into a little bit more detail than what I've just done, because I'm actually more interested in this tower. So Doncaster was 11.5 kilometres northeast of Melbourne, and the settlement began, Campbell, in 1841.
Yep.
6 years after.
Yep.
Yes, 6 years after Batman arrived in Port Phillip Bay, which you'll find in a lot of rural countries in Victoria. A lot of people were apparently already here before Melbourne even got its arse in the gear. So, so apparently the settlement began in 1841, and it was the UWIN's special survey of Bulleen of 5,120 acres. By 1850, many of the settlement was established in the area, and they were German. And it wasn't Doncaster originally. It was called, let me see, Wallam. Hang on a minute. Waldau, which is Waldau, the area was called. Waldau. And they were all Germans. They were all Germans. The streets were named were in German. The Lutheran church was there. A Lutheran school was there. Yeah.
And this is 1860s, is it?
No, this started in 1841.
Oh my God.
And then by 1850, you had a lot of German settlers there.
Okay, didn't know that.
Well, when you research our rural areas, Campbell, you get a common denominator pattern. And that pattern is settlements of the Irish, settlements of the Chinese, settlements of the Swedish, settlements of the Danish, settlements of the Germans, settlements of the French, the Dutch, and so on.
So all
very early
autonomous settlements that are all okay. So like basically like a lot of countries had come here, had been here, set up. They're already here, and they already had their settlements set up, and apparently
they already had their settlement
in harmony, right? weren't battling each other or anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're already here. I know with when I did my Lilydale research, like I keep saying, one of the wineries is the biggest one. Like I've always been led to believe that wineries take a long time for wines to actually mature enough to become award winners. And I said in my last show, we've got award-winning wines at the exhibitions in Paris and Vienna, and we've got award-winning wines in Switzerland. How do people even know to come here from Switzerland?
Yeah, I know, right? Switzerland to Australia.
The gold rush.
That's crazy.
So, and we had Swedish villages in Lilydale. So why have we got these villages of just of one particular culture? So in Ararat we had huge, apparently we've got villages, and you don't know unless you speak to someone in the area. Oh, not Ararat, sorry, Dalesford. I spoke to a lovely man up there years ago, and he was telling my husband and I about areas that were all Irish villages, all Scottish villages, and they were named Irish and Scottish villages and German villages. And unless you asked and you knew some of the locals, you wouldn't even know how to get there. We actually drove the four-wheel drive and found these places. And you've got dammed water. You've got buildings. So when I read that Doncaster already had a German settlement, it doesn't surprise me. So
that's just an interesting twist, that one.
And so we had English settlers come in who lived across near the Kennedy Creek that was named after the Kennedy settlers that were there. And then we had a settler come in whose last name was Doncaster because he came from the area of Doncaster, England. And then we had another one come in, and then they all of a sudden decided to call that area Doncaster because of these two settlers that came in with the last name of Doncaster. And then the German streets were changed to English naming streets, just to fill in the narrative there and the timeline.
Yeah, geez. I'm not
sure
sure
Doncaster.
Jeez.
Yes. So there was mainly Germans up until 1880. And it was, like I said, big orchard area. So they grew their fruit trees and vegetables, grain, maize, all sorts of stuff was built in that area, grown in that area. So by 1858, we had some blacksmith stores. We had a very large home, apparently, which was called the Glenfern, which is now a National Trust home, which belonged to a councillor. And then in 1869, we had another large house that was also used as a beer shop. In 1872, we had a lady who started the Morning Star Hotel. And we had other hotels in the area. But the Tower Hotel is where we're going now because that one blows my mind again. So we've got the electric train coming from Box Hill to this tower area, the highest point in Melbourne at that time. It was 85 metres.
Is this the tower that it says was built?
In 1877.
Is this the tower that says it was built by the dude?
By Mr. Humley.
Like
yes, Mr. Humley.
As a tourist attraction.
He built it because apparently he was a seafaring man and he wanted to get a good view off his land, and he was at the highest point. So that was the third attempt, apparently, of a tower, and he started off reasonably not as high, but it blew over. This is the story. It blew over. The second one also blew over, so he decided to go even higher, even though his first two attempts didn't work, and they were shorter, but he decided to go higher. And he used steel cabling that were anchored to the ground,
yeah,
to hold his tower up, which
that's
gave
crazy. Like this in the middle here. That's like a masonry brick tower, and he's surrounded with this. I mean, that looks like metal.
It is. He used metal and timber, and he used steel cabling in 1877.
And he built that by himself. That's crazy.
Now have a look at the background of that photo, Campbell,
Yeah,
around
I
the
know,
tower.
right? Yeah, I was looking at it. You can see the dark grey around here.
What are they hiding there too?
Yeah, exactly right. Especially up here, it's almost like a straight line.
Look at it. Yeah, cut out.
They've scrubbed out this whole section, this bit.
Yep.
So yeah, well, I mean, was that originally an airship tower, right? You know, it's got the little.
That was my first thought.
Got the little veranda here, balcony to get on and off.
Yep.
But that's to say that that's just built. That's a third attempt, just built by some dude, so we could get a view. That's just silly.
Well, have a look at the building next to it.
I know, right? The Tower Hotel. How Tartarian is that?
Yeah, that's just the entrance to the estate.
Yeah, right. Got a light out here as well. Have we got any other? So there it is again, the tower. Oh, we've got a nice little old church here.
Yep. And across, I think, is the part of the house. And there's another one. A lot of it doesn't make sense to me, but when I read why, you'll know. That doesn't look like the same building, really, does it? Unless it's from another part of that road.
This one?
Yeah, well, it would be, because I'd say further up, it would be that entrance.
Yeah.
So if this is the view, it was a 360-degree view of Melbourne.
That's a pretty tall ladder there on there, Paula.
It's a very tall ladder there. Very scary.
Yeah, man.
That's what you'd
expect to see, right? A house like this. You know, you'd expect to see that, not these, you know, Tartarian-esque, you know, type buildings.
Have a look, Campbell, at the light next to it.
Oh, next to the house. Yeah, I did see that.
What's that lamp? What's that? We don't even know a date. There's half the time there's no date. That's another thing. There's very little, like, let's just step back. What I'm about to tell you will blow your mind. But let's step back a little bit, because when you're doing research on this Tower Hotel, the tower and everything, you would think, being a landmark place, because apparently this area became very established and well known all over the world at that time, and the electric tram put it on the map, even more so for tourists. We're talking over 20,000 tourists use that tram line in a very short space of time and went to that tower. Very short space of time, because it actually shut down in 1896. The tram line was shut down. It wasn't making any money. It was actually costing them money, so they just shut it down. But in that time, we've had a lot of tourists going on that tower. So, but there's little information. There's only one couple, or there's only one book that was ever written. Nothing was really written except for this book that a couple had written about the area, the whole Bundoora Shire area. There was only a small mention made of that area, because the last part of it was taken down in 1960. So, but before then, unless you go into Trove, I found quite a few snippets about that area in Trove. But for such a historical place for Melbourne, again, the first electrical tram for the Southern Hemisphere, along with the biggest expedition in Melbourne held in 1888, we've got very little knowledge of how the time frame of that tower was made. They're sort of saying around about 1876, 1877, there was 2 attempts. Not really much said about the hotel when there was really nothing, no date for this hotel. No dates for anything. There's very, very, very little written or photographed of this area. So keeping that one in mind, we've got Mr. Alfred Hummel. Now, as I said, very little was known about the hotel, the towers, or anything. There was only small articles that existed explaining anything of this area. That's right, apart from Ivan Green and Ken Smith, who went into a little bit of depth about the histories of the landmark area, but there was hardly anything given in any historical books, any historical societies regarding the tower, the hotel, and what was happening at that time and when it was actually built. Now, Alfred Hummel built his homestead on what was called then Doncaster Hill. The homestead was called Bayview 2, and he built it in the mid-1860s. They don't give you a time because he came into the area in the 1860s, so they don't know the time he actually built the homestead. There was 16 acres of garden, like botanical garden. He used 7-foot drains at the base of the hill so he could build grow his fruit trees, oranges, raspberries, gooseberries, potatoes, maize, strawberries. So he had a bit of a production going on in his orchards at the foot of the hill, yet the homestead was built on the top of the hill. Mm. He built the Tower Hotel and the Doncaster Hotel. Now, the only way they know that he built those was that there was a mention of him in Trove trying to attempt to build these 2 towers in 1877. But also around this time...
So that means that he built the hotel too?
Yes. At this time, he became a Justice of Peace, which then put him in council positions. But he had the Tower Hotel and he had the Doncaster Hotel in around these time frames. That's the only information people can get, and that's all I can get. So there was mention of Hummel in papers in those time frame areas and describing him as a Justice of the Peace, and also describing his Doncaster Hotel and his Tower Hotel. But there's nothing of when they were actually built. So the time frame can only be when he came into the area in early 1860, when he built the house, and when he was mentioned for the towers in 1877, and then when he was mentioned as a Justice of the Peace in that time frame, because there was mention of him being the owner of the Doncaster Hotel and the Tower Hotel. That's all we can find. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a very good history, do we? There's not much there.
So keep in mind also by 1911, when the census came out for the area, we had, I think it was 1,200 people that lived in the Bundoora Shire.
Okay.
Because we had big farms doing the orchards, everything.
Yeah.
So the area didn't grow, Campbell, until the 1950s. It was still only 1,500 people up until the 1940s. It wasn't a big area for people to live in.
Yeah, right.
So there wasn't a lot of people in the area, obviously, in the 1860s and 1870s and 1880s, but we had quite a few hotels.
Yeah. Interesting. I used to live near Doncaster when I was young. Lower Templestowe, and that's an interesting name, isn't it? Templestowe.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Exactly. Bundoora is another interesting area. The whole area, again, is very interesting. So we had the Tower Hotel, and he actually had refreshment rooms before the electric tram came in. He had refreshment rooms built at the base of this tower already. So he was already entertaining people.
The Who, yeah, and the hotel, like 1,200 people. I mean, and it's a farming community, right? Like, there's no reason for people to go out there and stay in a hotel. It's not like the seaside or anything, is it?
Nope. So we've got refreshment rooms.
Yep.
Anyway, we'll continue this.
Continue, yes. What else have we got?
This is what I found in the only thing I could find was in some of the historical society in the area and Trove. So the description is as follows. The hotel was, of course, bigger than any in the district, with 39 rooms. Stables that stabled 20 horses. He actually originally called it at time, well, I think there was another person that also had the property, and he called it the Beaconsfield Hotel. So it was named the Tram Hotel and the Beaconsfield Hotel. The position described by the tourists that the hotel had wonderful views and rolling hills and sea breezes, because you can actually see the ocean. You could see for huge distances, because the hill was so steep, Campbell, that this was built on. So you've got a steep hill, you've got winds, you've got a tower that's 85 metres high. Imagine the winds up the top there.
Yeah. I know, right? It's not a very good place to do it, especially when two had already been blown over, apparently.
Yes.
But, you know, that old Tartarian technology.
We're doing all this in the 1870s?
Yeah.
So,
while he was running a farm, you know, an orchard, 2 hotels, you know, why not just whack up a tower as well?
Exactly. But not just did we have a hotel and a tower, which had refreshment rooms underneath, there was also numerous large summer houses attached to the hotel.
What? Interesting.
It took a lot of digging to find this, but I knew I was going to find more. I just had to it took me months to find it, but I found it. So we've got large summer houses as well in this area, with various beverages to suit all tastes.
Okay. So we're introducing them, I wonder. All right.
So we've got beverages for all tastes. We've got a beer house in the area as well. Someone's turned their house, a 2-story house in the area as well, into a beer house. And we've got the Morning Star in the area. We also have another hotel. We've got the Doncaster Hotel, and we've also got another hotel which had a German name. And there was a few others as well. So in 1888, when this electric tram came, the property had 16 acres of flower gardens, picnic grounds, swings, and tracks for foot and bicycle races.
Okay. What does that mean, bicycle? Does that mean it's not a dirt track, I wonder? I don't know.
Apparently they had a lot of bicycle races.
It's pretty early for bicycles, right, and bicycle races.
Yeah, we had foot and bicycle races held.
I mean, it just
That's
sounds a lot like he's stumbled across an old outcropping, right? I wonder what's under the hill, under that very tall hill.
well, this will blow you away. We also had a roller skating track.
What? There were roller skates back then?
That's what I thought.
In the
A roller skating track.
Okay.
And there was all intentions of building an extensive coffee palace to be lit up with electricity for accommodation of all classes of society.
All classes. Nice. Not just the gentry. So that was just a plan, though. Did he ever build the coffee palace? Do we know?
Well, this tower had worldwide reputation, as I mentioned. It was 700 feet above sea level.
And it looks a lot like all the other towers we see all around, right?
Yep.
What's that one in England? Blackpool, I think.
It was taller than that because I actually found a bit of an article about it. It was taller than that one. It was taller than the tallest building in Melbourne at that time. It was taller than any other building at that time in around the world. That tower, apparently.
What? Some dude just whacked it up on the weekends. All right.
Yeah, just slapped it up. We also had an assembly hall for 200 people that was used for balls and parties when in season by the elite.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that Morning Star is a very interesting name for a hotel or a pub, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. We had several pianos, public dining hall and private parlours, and can cater for up to 400 people with every delicacy that can be possibly procured at the town establishments will be supplied at very short notice.
Yeah, right. Sounds like they may have discovered the underground train network as well. How are they getting all this stuff out there and
they get it out there very short. Yeah, it's very short notice, Campbell. This was their marketing tool. That you could go out there and it didn't matter what your taste buds required, they would accommodate, and in very short time.
Because, I mean, no refrigeration or anything, right? So how are they keeping all this, big array of food, I wonder?
Yeah, you've got to wonder, don't you? It's a big statement for a very, small farming community.
Yeah, 1,200 people, yeah.
So no expense is spared to make the experience as near perfection as possible, even for the poor mortals that came.
The poor mortals, oh my God. Yeah, right. I mean, that's the story, right? Like the rich, the gentry, the elites, they just claim everything as their own and live the high life while we, sit around digging out the bloody train tracks.
Well, someone said to me, which I never even, this is the veil that keeps going away, but why were our soldiers called the diggers? Because they dug everything out. They used them when they came back. They used them before they went to the war, and they used them when they came back. They digged out those roads for the Great Ocean Road. They dig out the grounds, apparently, for the shrine. They were the diggers.
Interesting.
So I keep saying I think Melbourne is the heart, and Melbourne was the party capital for the elites everywhere.
It sounds like it. It's just so far away from anywhere else, right? So how are they all getting here? And
but are we? We're only going by maps.
Yeah.
How far are we really?
Wow. We don't know. We really don't know, right? But I mean, there's a lot of discussion about these underground railways that they might have been using all the way back then.
Absolutely.
they may have had the whole network sorted, because obviously anything underground would not be as affected, right, by a mud flood or a cataclysm. It might still be working. So, and they seems to be still using all that stuff today, right? Like running around the world and moving all their stock, shall we say.
Well, still, how is it we never see these people? We only see these people as, so-called celebrities and government and, whatever puppeteers are up there. We don't see them in our daily driving in the traffic.
No.
We don't see them. Unless they want to be seen, we don't see them. So they are using underground transport, the vacuum systems.
Mm.
And they've been there forever. There's old photos of the vacuum systems.
Yeah. I've seen, there's a good one. Well, I don't know if it's a photo, the drawing of a New York one, but yes, I need to talk to, I've got to.
You've got to talk to Gil.
Yeah, I've got to sort out some interviews. I've got to call a few people. But yes,
because he says the starports were actually used as terminals for these vacuum transport systems that went under the ocean and and they went so fast because they were vacuumed or propelled.
Yeah, and interestingly, he says that the starports had towers on them, right?
Yes.
Like the Eiffel Tower, like the tower we just looked at. So, I mean, what did they find underground? Is that how they were getting everything there so quickly and whatever you want, whenever you want it, and getting the people to stay there, for all this infrastructure, like how they getting there and how all these millions of people getting to World's Fairs, and I mean, that would answer a lot of questions, right?
Absolutely. But also too, why did we pick, again, a very farm area that's got steep terrain for the first electric cart of the Southern Hemisphere to go to the largest tower with a 360-degree view, and you look at that building beside the tower, it looks like one of those magnetic archways to me. Did we already have electricity there? Was that the base of the electricity? Is that stupid engine room just a facade to make it look like a poverty engine room? It's all, a cover story. Why did we pick that place?
Right? Yeah, we don't know what's inside those buildings or anything. So it's all them just trying to fit things into the story, right? That we were, there was no one here and there was nothing here, and that because they found it, right? They found the land, and so they claimed it, even though there were people here. But they can't explain the technology, right? Because that would stuff up the agenda. We'd all be like, well, where's the technology now? Which we kind of are, right? All the time.
Exactly. All the time.
And I think,
absolutely.
Underground stuff.
And I personally think, Campbell, we need to stop looking at the times and the dates, because that's what produces the chaos. I think we're actually looking at our old Tartarian civilization when we look at the old photos, and I believe nothing changed between the early 1850s photos and etchings or whatever we had to the 1910s, when you could actually see a car, or there was transport that they could get on a train. But an 1877 photo can look the same as an 1850 photo because they've got horse and cart. There's no reference, and half these societies, historical societies, can't reference dates for half these photos. They're just guessing, and that's why they put a stamp on it.
Yeah, and then we take that as fact, yeah.
Exactly. It's exactly right. So I'm starting to research now. I don't want to see the time. I don't want to see the date, because to me it means nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm looking at the remnants of the people that still were living here before these pricks took over. That's how I'm seeing things.
Yeah, I think that's how we have to. It's like you said about that city, I can't remember which one it was, with the trams, and it was like electric, and then it was horse and cart, and then it was like, that's only going by dates on pictures, right? Like, it doesn't make sense at all. So
it doesn't make sense. Why would you go from an electrical cart that was running off electricity wire, you can see it, to a cable running underneath the cable? and then changing it again.
And
it's like, you know, you look at, and you look at the photos and they've clearly got electricity. The poles are there, but there's no wiring going across. But who's to say when that happened? It's only happening because of the timeline they want to give you. But you see a lot of very early photos that have got, and they're saying they're from that timeline, that 1850 timeline, yet they've got electricity posts there with the ceramic cones.
Yeah, I remember those ceramic, like capacitors.
Remind me to show you. Like, exactly, and there's no wires.
And I remember being out in the bush when I was like little, like 5 or something, and there was those things everywhere, and red bricks, and they were all smashed. I never obviously thought much about it, but they used to be everywhere, right? And was that a different kind of electricity produced that you could touch, right? Like they said in that article, like wasn't zapping people, you could just touch a light bulb to it, like the Tesla where he's holding the light bulb, right?
Exactly. And our bricks had energy, were a capacitor for electricity as well, yet they destroyed all those.
Yeah, totally. I mean, mortar and clay with iron in it, that's a capacitor, right? Just keep stacking up. I mean, that's the thing. I think most of these buildings were some kind of tech. I don't think they were necessarily for people to be in, right? I don't think they were, you know, shops and government things and theaters, all this stuff. I think they were just actually buildings, like, well, not buildings, but, you know, components. That's why they all have
energy
features. Yeah. Just big machines, basically.
Yeah, well.
Back on, but we're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. We're getting there. All right, so we're going to have to get on the next one because we hit 12 o'clock. So I got to go. Have you got anything else? But we haven't got too much time left.
Oh yeah, this is the finale. What are you doing to me, Campbell?
All right, let's do the finale. I can do the finale.
All right, so we've got all the best happening here. Can you bring up some photos of the actual house? There's a beautiful house homestead there that you can see, which is very German, Danish. So anyway, we've got all this. So
almost, right? Look at the
Moorish. Yes. Look at that. So of course, Campbell, what do you think would be the outcome of all this?
I have no idea. What would it? Is that?
It looks.
Doesn't it?
Have a look at the house.
It's drawn like. Even
have a look at the house. It doesn't look like. Yep, no one lives in it. Have a look at the bottom.
Boarded up, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something weird going on there.
And the tower's right next to it. So someone can't say to me, oh, well, that's probably after the tower. No, the tower's next to it. I've got a photo of it with the tower. So, of course, we've got the fire story, Campbell.
Of course, yes. Of course it burnt down. Yep.
So in 1895, a fire broke out in one of the rooms, sending the place into an inferno. The fire brigade were unable to get there quick enough as the horses were collapsing going up the hill and playing up.
Yep.
When they got there, some of the people had connected to the underground tank of water that was supplied. But by the time they connected to that and tried to put it out, it was too late, and they had to get the bucket brigade to use their buckets because the pump on this underground water supply had broken.
Of course. Okay, and so this brick building burnt down.
So too late to save the hotel.
There's something going on with this photo, man. Look at this. This fence looks drawn. It
looks drawn.
That doesn't look like a photo, right? There's something very weird going on.
Have a look at that beautiful house. And they've added that veranda.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
They've added that veranda to make it fit the narrative.
Yeah, especially in Australia, man. Put a corrugate veranda around it and it's Australian, right?
Yep. So it was too late. But yeah, I thought the same. Even the bottom part looks drawn in to me.
This whole bottom bit, yeah, it does, man. It's crazy.
It's so weird.
Yeah, well, look at these shadows. They're not all, see that? They're not all.
Yeah,
This
in
one
line.
looks like it's on an angle. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah, right. That's okay. That's an interesting picture.
So yes, it's So
this was the hotel. This was like the Tower Hotel, was it? Is that what it is?
I think that's either the homestead he built.
Okay.
And the hotel was another part. The Tower Hotel was another part of it, because in other photos you see a different type of building. That's a bus they finally used in the 1920s, because they got rid of the electric tram. Didn't work for them anymore. They got what they wanted out of it, I'd say.
Yeah. And the Rockefellers told them to use petrol, right?
Yep.
Sell the oil, man.
Yep. So yeah, the description was, the elaborate decorated brick building with curved driveway led to the entrance with electric lights to welcome visitors at night, and horse troughs to refresh the horses. And I'm thinking, well, you'd have horse troughs anyway, wouldn't you, if you've got horses there all the time? And apparently the hotel was rebuilt at some stage. And the hotel was then sold in 1898. So we have a fire of the hotel in 1885, 95. Hang on, I've got to get this all wrong. 1895. We have a story of the hotel being burnt, and then we got another hotel up in 1898 because it was sold to another proprietor.
Wow. Well, they
and
sure
then the
were
tower
fast building.
They sure did, and the tower was dismantled in 1914.
All right, just for no reason. Tallest
No.
tower in the world.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, that's a very strange story of Melbourne. I mean, yeah. Again, it just sounds like they're finding stuff, and that's why they're in these strange places, right? Because wherever they are, and they
make their money out. Well, the people are still using it, so they can't push them out. So that's why you find little information about it. And when you do, it's like, that's bizarre for the amount of people that are living there. It makes no sense. So they dismantled the tower in 1914, and then 3 years later, in 1917, the hotel became a grocery store. A shop front was added, and then the shop front became Doncaster Mowing Service, and then in 1969, the building was totally demolished. And that's just a quick overview of what happened. But we've gone from, you get stories like this all the time. This is what does my head in, Campbell. And it's like they're trying to connect the stories with the narrative that they want you to follow, but then you find other little tidbits that don't follow the narrative and make no sense. Like, why have you got this bustling business going on in the mid-18th, 19th century, and you've got people going there, 400 people that they can cater for, and they can cater for whatever you want, to the 5-story, to being dismantled, to being forgotten. We've got a little friggin' plaque on Tram Road about the tram, and very little. You've got the Doncaster Hotel and the Doncaster Shopping Centre sit on all this area now.
Oh, really? Okay, I know the old Doncaster, like the Westfield shopping town. That place is massive.
Well, yep, right on the hill.
Yep. Yeah, right. So it's like we tend to think of it as, they've come in and they've found this empty, desolate buildings and infrastructure, but maybe there were people there, right? And this is all a cover up of them pushing the people out and stealing
Yes.
everything. Maybe that's where the fires come in. Maybe
Yes.
that's how they're getting rid of people. Well, if you're not going to move, we'll just set fire to your house, right?
Yeah.
And burn it down
Yeah.
and then kick you out. And
Yep.
yeah, right. That's. I mean, it kind of makes more sense, right?
Absolutely.
But there was
Absolutely it
still
does.
living there, yeah.
Yep. It's no different to now. I keep saying it. We're seeing a repeat. And you know what? At that time too, Campbell, before they closed it all down, because they weren't making any profit, they were also heading into some form of depression, because apparently they were hiking up the tax rates for the grain. They were hiking up the tax rates for fruit and veggies, and eggs were unobtainably priced for people to eat eggs, to buy eggs at that time.
Just like today.
Just like today.
Yeah, right. So they move in there and they do the same thing, right? They price people out of it.
Yep. And push
Take
them
away
into the
their
cities.
wealth and then push them out. Yeah.
Push them into the cities like they're doing now. Fire levies, the farmers, everything. Agriculture gets pushed out. People can't live there because it's too far to travel now for food, and everything's expensive. It's too far for petrol. So let's just go into, your 15-minute cities. It's got everything.
Yeah, man. You can walk everywhere. You can have your job. Probably won't even have to leave your apartment. Get your robot girlfriend or boyfriend. You'll be set.
Yeah. And we had electric cars back then, Campbell. We had electric fire engines. We had electric carriages. We had electric footpaths. We had electric amusement parks, which is another one I'm going to go into, because that doesn't add up to our population as amusement parks we had in Melbourne. Ridiculous.
Oh, more than one. Okay, I'd like to talk about that. Yeah, because Luna Park, obviously, and there's Luna Parks everywhere. Why are they lunar? What's the moon got to do with them?
And the bathhouses. Luna Park was left for the narrative, because we had amazing amusement parks just around Melbourne. That makes no sense. Just like this story makes no sense. Where are all the people coming from to these businesses to run financially? Where are they coming from? You can't just say they're coming from overseas all the time, because it doesn't add up.
No, the travel distance is too long. Like, no one's going to travel 6 months to spend, a month or so at a World's Fair and then go back home again. That doesn't make any sense. But, high-speed underground tube train that'll get you here in half a day.
No time.
Yeah,
or an airship. An airship will get you there in no time, which would make a lot of sense for that tower, because we've got the refreshment rooms at the base of it. We've got a platform at the top, and we've got, hotel, we've got houses, we've got accommodation, and we can give you anything you want to eat. It's all here. It's all there in front of us, isn't it? It's how we look at the information.
Yeah,
it's how
exactly. And the
how we
whole
look at the
time
information.
dates is a good one, I think, because we don't know. Like, all we know with dates is what someone's put on it, either written on the photo or written on the website we get it from. Like, we don't.
Exactly.
How
so it limits. Exactly. But what it does is it limits our capacity to think outside the box. So if we're seeing a date, we program that as the date, as the gospel of the time of what we're seeing. If we eliminate those dates and we just look at what we're presented, and then we look at what the narrative presents to us, but then we look a little bit deeper of what's going on at that time period, and the amount of people living in that time period, and what we're seeing in the newspapers, what's being said, and also, the historical societies, even though they're the gatekeepers, sometimes they don't even realise what they've got are absolute nuggets towards the story, and you put the story together without any process of programming, and you get a different picture.
Yeah, totally.
Totally different picture. And that's what I'm working on at the moment. So The next one is of all the mansions in St Kilda, the amusement parks. I mean, there's so much that I'm trying to delve into, Campbell.
Oh.
And our relationship with the Egyptians.
Oh, okay. Geez, you're going there. Gosford
Glyphs.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you do know that in Tutankhamun's tomb, they found boomerangs.
They also found Bendigo gold.
Bendigo gold.
Apparently, they found gold that was not of the area. And apparently our gold is very specific because we have a lot of minerals in our gold that only happens in Victoria. It's actually quite toxic. So, yeah, apparently that gold, whatever it was, that went back to the Bendigo gold.
Wow, all right. Well, let's definitely get into that on the next chat. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to be done here. The story just keeps getting deeper, right?
Well, we can chat about a lot of things. So I can go in. I actually want to go into the St Kilda mansions because that's a huge one, and the mansions all around Victoria. And I know I'm sticking with Victoria, but it's where I can actually physically see places. I can go to these historical place societies and I can actually look at what they've got. Because what they've got actually in their gatekeeping rooms that they don't even realise what they've got is a treasure.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, right? At least a deep dive on one place because all these things and people can go, oh, was that in my town? Oh, because the mansions is a big one. They were everywhere, right? Like the whole Gilded Age thing. And then again, right, these amazing houses that they can't replicate today, they just knock them over.
Exactly, and they did. Whelan the Wrecker, his first job was to eliminate mansions in Victoria. That was his first job before he even started in Melbourne.
To eliminate mansions.
Yep. Why?
Too much tech.
Why? When we were just selling land, Campbell.
Yeah.
Why do we have to do this? So there's a lot to research. I'll be doing that for a while, so you won't see me for a while.
Yes. All right. Well, let's leave it there until next time. So thanks again. Very good. Please, people
You're
watching,
welcome.
like, subscribe, leave us your comments. Have you got anything to add to the story?
Please like.
Yep, like.
Subscribe.
Yep, and I mean, you're on Facebook too. I don't know if you want to put, but you can look up Paula on Facebook.
I don't share my research on Facebook, only other people's research, because I just, if I did that, I'd be sitting there all day writing on the bloody texting like this. I do everything by hand, so exercise books are where I go.
I hope you're working on an article for the new Tartaria Australia newspaper.
Well, maybe that's where I'm going to start, Campbell, with the whole where Australia started, Egyptian and Phoenician and all that sort of stuff. Maybe that's going to be in your newsletter.
All right. You can get in there every bi-monthly, link below, guys, if you want to check it out, tartariaaustralia.com. First issue is free, apparently. Kelly has stated.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I know, right? Don't know how I'm going to afford that one, but so jump on that. But yeah, and if you're a writer, if you've got any info, you can also submit stuff to it, like Paula will, and leave us your comments. What do you think about all this? Have you found similar stuff in your city? Have you got anything to add to the story? Put it in the comments below, and we'll check it out. And we'll be back in a week or so, I guess. With
give me more. No, it'd be longer than that, Campbell. I'm just starting on the mansion.
Starting on it. All right. Well, we'll be back at some point. Much research to be done. All right. Well, thanks for that, Paula. And yes, we will see you soon for part. God, what is it? 6, 7, something like that.
I don't know.
the never-ending story.
That's it. That's it.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks for liking and subscribing. See you, Campbell.
See ya.